Comrade Prakash Karat, respected guests on the dais, comrades and friends. Comrade Sitaram Yechury, whom we all referred to as Sita, was not just a comrade and a friend, he was actually my student. In 1973, when the Jawaharlal Nehru University started its MA program in economics, Sita, along with a group of other very bright students, joined that MA program. And that was a program in which 6 of us, mostly in our late 20s or early 30s, participated as faculty and taught Sitaram. He was, of course, a brilliant student. He got A's in all his papers, including from highly exacting, highly strict, meticulous teachers. He could have walked into any distinguished, outstanding institution in the world for his research. He could have walked into any scholarship for financing his education in such a distinguished institutions. He could have got any scholarship. But he, along with others in his batch, decided to stay on in JNU and complete their PhD in our department. Now, from my long experience, I know that a center of learning in India, a university, its success can be defined not by whether you have a good MA program or not by whether you have a good BA program or not, but whether you actually have a good research program or not. Because otherwise, they only become finishing schools for foreign universities. The fact that Sitaram and many other bright students of his batch stayed on in JNU to complete their research is something which contributed greatly to making JNU the kind of outstanding institution that it later became. Of course, Sita did not complete his research. To the sorrow of all of us, the entire faculty, he actually abandoned his research and of course became a whole-timer of the party. His affability, his lack of any airs, his gentleness, his modesty are legendary. But above all was his appreciation of life. The Marxist philosopher George Lukács once distinguished between 2 different kinds of communist revolutionaries. One of which he took as an example, Eugene Levin, who was the leader of the Munich Soviet in 1918 and who suffered martyrdom, was in fact an austere communist. He had said that we communists are dead men on leave. In other words, the notion of a communist having a joie de vivre was something which he did not believe in. As opposed to this, Lukács referred to Lenin, who, of course, was the opposite. He believed in the joy of living. Of course, another thing that a communist often does not have the money and the resources to fully appreciate the joy of living, but nonetheless, this is something which is a kind of cultural trait. And Sitaram belonged to this latter cultural trait, completely, unequivocally, unambiguously. He believed in a joie de vivre. Even his position on the United Front, on the India bloc and so on, which many people have, many speakers have referred to, was informed by a theoretical understanding of the specificity of the present. And that specificity, from what I have discussed with him and so on, was the following. That earlier, of course, all revolutionaries, all communists have to be, as it were, in their ideas, epistemically outside of the existing society. naturally, because you want to change this society. So you must bring to bear upon it ideas which are outside of this society, extrinsic to this society. But the earlier communists, for whatever reasons, maybe for historical reasons, also more or less lived outside society. They were not present physically in society. You know, the Bolshevik Revolution, most of the Russian revolutionaries had to come in a sealed train from outside to participate in the revolution. Chinese Revolution, you actually had the revolutionary in Yan'an. They actually had, in a sense, moved to Yan'an from the mainland, the bulk of mainland China. You look at the Cuban Revolution, the revolutionaries were in Sierra Maestra. So the point is that communist revolutionaries earlier were both epistemically and physically outside of society. But now we live in a world in which, of course, they have to be epistemically outside society, but physically they are in society. Now that basically demands strategies and tactics and ways of dealing with others, ways of dealing with other political and social forces, which have to be necessarily different from others. And Sita was occupied by this particular thought, and how to retain, while being physically inside society, how to retain your epistemic extrinsicness vis-a-vis this society. This was a challenge which all his life he was struggling with. He was, in that sense, a really modern communist. And in that sense, we would also all be extremely impoverished by his passing. Thank you.